to another video. My name is Mia and I am bookish, blind, and Broadway bound. And today we are finally doing a review of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. So actually, to preface this, because I do believe that it affects my rating, I started this very shortly after the release date back in early December, and it took me until January 30th. And so I think that definitely has a hand in the lower rating that I gave this book. I gave this book 3 stars. And I don't really rate books lower than that unless I find them to be irredeemable. And so, not that this is an irredeemable book, I think that there are a lot of good things about it, but I am just a huge Sander fan, and I have been for a while. And I think I now will have to give away the title of number one Sander fan to somebody else, because I didn't love this book as much as I thought I was going to, which is really disappointing because the Stormlight Archive was such a formative series in my teenage years, and it still holds such a dear place in my heart. And I think that the high expectations that I gave it was a disservice to the book. And normally Brandon is able to just blow those expectations out of the water, but this time just fell flat for me, and I'd like to talk about why. So I think what's going to work best is to break it into characters. So I will have it in the timestamps down below if you want to jump to a certain character, and I hopefully will cover everything. If you have any questions or any opinions that you have, I would love to hear in the comments, because I know this one has been very divisive, and I know that a lot of people love it and a lot of people don't like it. What I've heard actually is that it's kind of a book for the binge readers, and I think that kind of is true. I've heard that a lot of people who read it faster really liked it, and for me I couldn't get through it. I continuously was like plugging along and trying to get through it, and it still took me 2 months. And so I don't know, I think a lot of that had to do with the structure, because normally what Brandon does is he does big chapters of just one character, sometimes 2 in one chapter. And then when he goes into the Sanderland, as they say, kind of the bigger moments, he will split it up into almost paragraph by paragraph. It's switching point of view, and it's like that. It's so fast and action after action, and that totally works because a lot can happen in a paragraph, right? But with this book, it's that constantly. And so when the Sanderlanches do come, they don't feel big. And when it's just by paragraph, it's almost like, oh, you know, they're still walking, still doing the thing that they were doing when we last checked on them 2 pages ago. And then it moves away from them before we can really sink into the scene. And so I think that if there had been some simple reformatting and restructuring of the book, I would have enjoyed it quite a bit more. But as of now, I do feel good about my 3-star rating. And I will be getting into spoiler territory from now on. So I would say if you're a big Stormlight fan and you're wondering about reading this book and you kind of want to hear a little bit, then maybe listen on, but I would be careful because I'm probably going to talk about a lot of spoiler stuff. So let's start with Kaladin. My favorite character, probably. I love Kaladin. And if you remember, if you were in the fandom back during Rhythm of War, everyone was complaining that Kaladin was too depressed and that they were getting tired of his depression arc, which I thought funny at the time because I am someone who struggles with depression, and yeah, it can get boring for sure. It can get old really fast. But I appreciated that Brandon was able to stick with that and represent it, in that depression doesn't just go away, and sometimes it's very inexplicable, and I liked that that was what we saw. And now we're seeing in Stormlight 5, I'm seeing a lot of reviews where people are complaining that he felt too happy and not true enough to his character. And I don't think that is at all. I really liked the way that he was able to feel okay, and not great, right? But just kind of make peace with things. I think he deserves that. And I'm so glad that he has been able to get that closure. And I think we as readers, it's easiest for us to say, well, why isn't he fighting? Because those are the more entertaining things to read, right? But I think that the point of this book was that not all battles have to be by the sword. And I think that that was done well in some areas, right? But I actually think that a lot of the time it wasn't as well executed. Maybe not the book to make that point. Maybe Rhythm of War, we could have made that point, right? And then kind of gone into the more action-packed, because Rhythm of War already felt like a setup. And Stormlight 5 also felt like a setup to me for the next arc. So it just didn't work. But yeah, I really liked Kaladin's arc, I thought there were a little bit of just cheesy lines that broke it for me. Like, for example, it kind of felt like he had watched the really old stereotypical like psychiatrist shows where they're like, and how does that make you feel? Because he would always say that, and just like without fail, Szeth would be telling him something like, yeah, I hear the voices of the damned in my head every day, and he'll be like, and how does that make you feel? And that just doesn't feel like the Kaladin I know. I don't think he would like to be asked how something makes him feel. I think maybe he would be asked to elaborate. That feels like a more Kaladin thing to do, but it was just funny. I felt like it broke the arc for me, and it broke that the more smooth like exposition of Kaladin throughout the book, where we would just have these lines thrown in that didn't feel true to him. And the other thing was, I feel like the representation of mental health, Brandon has always been so good at that, and I think he still was, but there was just one thing that bothered me. He would always say, you in kind of regard to Szeth's thoughts, he would say, like, the bad thoughts, you just kind of have to stop thinking them and replace them with good thoughts. When, like, actually what you need to do is get to the root of the problem and figure out why those bad thoughts are happening. You can't just fight them off with soldier thoughts every day and expect that to work long term. And I think a lot of people can tell you that. And this is just me coming from my years of therapy and my experience in mental health, right? Like, I'm just a girl, I don't know. Like, that's just how I feel. I was also very sad that Bridge 4 kind of just deteriorated. Like, Sigzil's gone, Teft is gone, Leighton is gone, Rock is gone. And the rest we don't get to check up on and see if how they're doing at the end of the book. And I think that could be a really easy thing for Brandon to do, is just dedicate a page or two to talk about Bridge 4, because that was such almost the lifeblood of a lot of the books for me, this like pulse that was beating in the middle, where it's like Bridge 4 is the center of this. And it's this connection of Kaladin's, and it felt like he outgrew it, which was sad because I certainly didn't like want to leave it behind. I was also a little bit worried about the Syl and Kaladin shipping in this book. I felt that there were hints, but honestly, maybe I'm just paranoid. I am not here for it. I would like to put that on record. I'm not a Syladin shipper, and I hope that does not happen. Okay, Shallan, all I have to say is that her and Kelsey are both just disasters in the most loving sense of the word, and I love that they got to interact. And honestly, I think that's all that she really did this book, so good on you, Shallan. Dalinar, okay, I have questions. So first of all, this has been explained to me and I still can't understand it. If Taravangian, if what he said is correct, that 20 years have passed in the spiritual realm while they're gone, or in the physical realm while they're in the spiritual realm, then why is everybody else not 20 years older? Why isn't the people in Urithiru, like, I don't know, Rushu or Lift, why are they not 20 years older? Why aren't the people outside of Urithiru 20 years older? And Gavinor is? Did he just did he manipulate time and add 20 years to his life? I don't understand. For most of it, I was like, this must be just like a fake Gavinor, but it was real, I guess. So I thought that's where my complaint is stemming from here, that I don't know that it was very well explained at all. And I think, nope, not Dalinar, Brandon Sanderson is usually very good at explaining things. And he didn't explain that. And that was an interesting choice. And I don't really get it. And you know what? I hate to say this, but I didn't feel anything when Dalinar made his sacrifice. Mostly because I was just so confused and blindsided by it. Not in a good way. It didn't feel like a plot twist. I was just shook. And I don't know. I think seeing him kind of in this book just stuck in his plot points of the first book, having visions again. And I understand that that's his purpose, but it just didn't work for me. And I didn't like Dalinar, and I thought that his choice was out of character and cowardly. And I understand that Brandon was trying to make the point that not all fights have to be a battle. I love that, but it just didn't work for the culmination of your giant sprawling epic. You know what I'm saying? Just not the best choice. Venli and Eshonai, they're gone. What even is the Parshendi arc? It's just dropped off the face of the earth. The only thing is Va'idu Mishram, and I would like to quote my friend Ryan George, who's not my friend, but he is my favorite YouTuber, and finding Mishram and breaking the rock was super easy, barely an inconvenience, which is really confusing because wasn't it supposed to be like the most dangerous thing in the world? They were like, oh, Mishram's totally gonna kill us when we broke the rock, and then she's going to help somehow. They broke the rock and she was like, okay, thanks, I'll see you later, and just like went off. And what did she even do? For what? You know, like I just I don't know what it was supposed to be, but I think I'm disappointed because I felt like the themes of colonization were really developed in Rhythm of War and then kind of just left there. So that was disappointing and sad. But what can you do? I did enjoy seeing Renarin and R'Lain and their relationship bloom. I think we missed out on a lot of Renarin's arc, which is sad, but I know he has a book dedicated to him in the second half. So I'm excited for that. Next up, I just want to say that Szeth's arc was completely amazing. No notes. Probably why it's a 3-star. I really loved it. I loved everything. I love that he said, I'm not a thing, I'm a person. I liked that he said, I am the law and nobody else can make these choices for me. I thought it was brilliant. And that's the Brandon I know, right? I wish that the rest of it felt like that. And I wish that these weren't just kind of the, what's that saying? The gold in the, okay, never mind. You know what? Cut that out. I like that these moments were there, and I wish that they weren't so few and far between. But I loved Szeth's arc, and he has a wife. Why did Brandon just drop that on us? I'm shook. Someone write Szeth and his wife fan fiction, please. Okay, Moash. This is the time that I wanted to talk about something more personal, kind of to do with disability rep. And so when I first learned at the end of Rhythm of War that Moash was going to be blind because of Navani's light, this is going to sound weird to a sighted person, but I was really excited because I have not seen disability rep in a book that, especially blind rep, that felt true. A lot of it is very over stereotyped. A lot of it is, sorry, I'm gonna make up a word here. It's okay, mythologicized. It's made into kind of a myth and stereotyped, and I already said that, oh my gosh. But I think that is very harmful to people with disabilities, because let's say that Kaladin's depression, one day he was able to swear the fourth ideal and he breathed in Stormlight and he just wasn't depressed anymore, but instead was able to, just do the magic but without any of the bad feelings. Like, that just isn't how mental health works. You can't just wave it away with your wand, even though you wish you could, right? And to have that in a book is disloyal to the representation of the mental health. And so to see Moash be immediately given the Inquisitor, what are they called? The hemalurgic spikes, the metallurgic spikes.
Hemalurgic, yeah.
Okay. To see him get the hemalurgic spike was kind of surprising, because I was really hoping that would be something that was a part of his character. I know Brandon got sensitivity readers for the mental health, and I wish that he had gotten some for blindness, because I feel like it deserves to be more than just a narrative point and more than just a stepping off place to get more magical powers and be more spooky. That's not, it doesn't sit well with me. So I was disappointed in that. I was in some petty way hoping that he would run into some walls, but also then grow to be like a better person and understand more of the world and maybe make me feel understood. But that's okay, right? Nothing against Brandon. I'm tired of seeing the same old stereotypes be repeated and repeated when everything else in this book was so well done mental health wise. Okay, this is just a moment to appreciate Jasnah, and we're gonna end the video on her because she's amazing and I'm so proud of her. And I loved the moment where she was debating with Odium, and she's just my queen and I love her so much. And I hope that we get to see so much more of her next arc. Now, will I be reading Stormlight 6? I don't know. It's gonna take 7+ years to come out. I might be a different person by then. I hopefully will have recovered from the strain that it took and the soul that it took out of me to read this and how long it took a 1,300-page book that didn't honestly have that much action for being a culmination of an arc. I'm really hoping that I will be able to come back and fall in love with the series again. But I mostly was just disappointed by the ending of this and how open-ended it was, because we really were promised a definitive ending, and that's not what we got. And so I do hope that the next book kind of recovers things for me. But will I be reading until the end if I don't like what I'm reading in the middle? No, because I am convinced that I now have more gray hairs because of this book, and I'm not happy about it. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I would love to kind of expound on something else if you want me to make a review for other Cosmere books, or if there was something unclear. I would totally love to make a part 2. But for now, those are just kind of some takeaways that I had, and I'm interested to see what you all think down below. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!